You're tuned to K-Squid 90.7 FM and streaming online at ksqd.org. And coming up next, Exploring Santa Cruz. Welcome to Exploring Santa Cruz. My name is Jean KRATZER. I have a very special guest. Her name is Kathleen CROCETTI. To talk about Kathleen and her work in just one short program is impossible. It would really take a full week's seminar, if not more, but we'll give it a try. Kathleen was described by the former executive director of the Arts Council of Santa Cruz County, Michelle Williams, as a magic woman, an artist, activist, relationship builder, project manager, mentor, and a bringer of light, love, hope, and community. And I'd like to add that she's also a teacher in Santa Cruz at the Mission Hill Middle School, and I have personally seen parents of the children you taught there light up as they describe the joy and the creativity that you inspired in their children. I'm going to ask you to focus on your work as a community artist, because you've been quoted as saying, more than a public artist, I am a community artist. What do you mean by community artist?
So I like working in community. I've been doing this for about 10 years now, is to make art for, by, and with the community where the public art will reside. The tannery ebb and flow sculpture, that's the round pots with the trees coming out, is probably my most well-known one in Santa Cruz. And we rented a space at the tannery and built that piece with the residents of the tannery and other community members who wanted to come and help. And it was co-designed by Anna O'Neillia, who lived at the tannery at the time, with a lot of input from tannery residents. We established where we're going to make the work. Then we bring in the community to say, this is a location where we would like to do some creative placemaking so that we create a gathering space for you and your community. What would you like to see here? What's the identity of where you live? And how can we as an art team foster you as a community to become a more cohesive community, to identify what makes you special as a neighborhood or as a group of people, and what might be the visual cues that help outsiders identify your community as a special place. Then we make the art together with those same people, and the artwork itself is a marker for the community, but the bringing of people together to make the work themselves is also community building, because they get to know each other in a way that they might not have before. And then the artwork just remains as a reminder of the work that they did, but also just as a celebration of people coming together.
And this generally is mosaics that you work in with the community art, is that correct?
You know, it started out with a lot of different materials, but it has really over time just pretty much narrowed down to mosaics. And that's just been because as a medium, it's really easy to teach people how to work with the materials. And kids as young as 2 and 3 can put their hands on the material, and with guidance, of course, and then people as old as 90 come and help as well. So it's really a material that encompasses everybody. People with special needs and disabilities feel comfortable with the material, and it lends itself to that community building, because we can teach somebody how to work with mosaics in a matter of an hour and a half, and then the next week when they come back, they feel comfortable enough to show the people they brought with them or somebody brand new. So it allows people to step in and feel confident right away, and then to spread that new knowledge.
And in a way, the concept of mosaics, which is made up of many, many different pieces coming together to create something whole, is a bit like the idea of the people, many, many people from the community coming in and becoming a part of that whole. So it's symbolically, it really fits.
It's like a literal metaphor.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I'm going to bring up to date two projects, one of which has already started and you've completed the first stage, and that's called Watsonville Briante. And you did an interview about that about a month ago with Wallace Bain. So I'm going to ask you to describe that one very briefly, just an overview, because I'm going to ask Wallace if I can post his interview on Watsonville Briante together with the interview that we're doing today. So if you could start by a brief overview of that project.
Sure. Watsonville Briante is taking place in Watsonville. It's a 5-year project that will cover the downtown civic parking garage with 12,500 square feet of mosaics. We are working in 10 phases, so every 6 months we'll put up 1,200 square feet. And in April of this month, we installed the first 1,200 square feet. Those 1,200 square feet were fabricated by youth volunteers and community volunteers. There were over 180 people who contributed time to the putting together of that mosaic at a free art center that we opened in Watsonville. So because of Watsonville Briante being such a big project, my biggest by far, and it's going to be kind of expensive because we are going to run and operate an art center for 5 years, we also started a nonprofit organization called Community Arts and Empowerment. Right now, the Art Center is open as a summer youth program for a cohort of 12 youth only, in accordance with the county health guidelines on how to run summer programs for youth. But we are doing amazing work. These 12 kids, along with the 3 staff, have already completed 600 square feet of the next section that we should put up in the fall.
What is the theme?
The garage itself has 2 distinct features. It has 4 verticals, which are 24 feet across by 60 feet tall, and then 185 horizontal sections, which are only 40 inches tall, and they vary in length from 8 feet to 10 feet. We're currently working with the verticals. We're putting up portraits of people, and these portraits were done by Juan Fuentes, who grew up in Watsonville. He's a well-renowned artist who does woodblock printing. So we're taking his woodblock prints and enlarging them. The first one was a strawberry picker. The second one is an apple picker. The third one is going to be an indigenous woman. And the fourth panel will be an Asian person, though that image hasn't been voted on or approved. So all of our images have been put before the public, the community in Watsonville, for a vote. And then the Watsonville City Arts Commission has approved them before we got started. We intend with the horizontals to do symbolic images representing the cultures of people who have immigrated to Watsonville. We'll start, of course, with indigenous folks, Alones, and come through the waves of migration in Watsonville, which have included 80 different groups. And I know that the Croatian and the Irish are super well known because of Martinelli's and the strawberries around here, but there have been people from all over Europe, a lot of Europeans, but also a lot of South American countries as well as Mexico. So we'll be blending and meshing symbols to show the different cultures that have come here.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay, well, let's turn to your upcoming project, which instead of being in Watsonville this time, is in Santa Cruz. Tell us about that.
The Chinatown Memorial Bridge is a beautiful vision by George Au in conversation with Greg Pepping. And so Greg Pepping is the director of Coastal Watershed Commission. And he and George have worked really hard. I think it's been 2 years now. I was brought in on the project about a year ago, but they've been talking about it for a long time. And so they've gotten city council to recognize, acknowledge, and buy into this idea. Originally, Santa Cruz County had 11 Chinatowns, and 4 of those were located in Santa Cruz proper. The very last Chinatown in Santa Cruz was washed away by a flood in 1955. And that Chinatown had been located where currently the Galleria is. George was a little boy at the time, and he had spent some time living in that Chinatown. But by the time the flood happened, the Chinatown was already in decline. But the flood happened and it washed away. So George and Greg walked the river all the time, both of them. George for relaxation and exercise, and Greg because it's part of his mission as the director of the Coastal Watershed Commission to just be out there on the river and to be inspired by it and to figure out ways to get the rest of us inspired by the San Lorenzo. So there's a footbridge that goes from the former Riverfront Twin, where DNA's Comedy Club is now. From there, you can walk across the San Lorenzo River to San Lorenzo Park. It's a really nice bridge because it's a pedestrian bridge only, no cars. They wanted to ask the city to name that the Chinatown Bridge. And then the vision grew. How about we make a big arch, like the arches that mark Chinatowns in other cities, like San Francisco's. So George had already done the beautiful memorial in Evergreen Cemetery to the Chinese who have contributed so much to our community in the early days and then were forgotten. So the Evergreen Cemetery memorial was done by Tom Ralston, the concrete contractor who doesn't just pour concrete. He's really an artist with his work. So he and George had partnered on that project. And when Greg and George started talking about a memorial for Chinatown on the river, George said, well, I want Tom to make this arch. And that woman who does mosaics all over the place, I think she should do a dragon on the top. Do you know her? And Greg says, oh, yes. So Greg facilitated a meeting where I met George for the first time and Tom, and we met on site. I already knew Tom because he helped me with ebb and flow. So it was just myself and George who were new to each other. And we chatted briefly before Tom got there, which is really exciting because George at that meeting found out about my Watsonville project and came on board for my nonprofit organization. He's actually board president, just really sweet. In any case, the four of us are standing there and I have my sketchbook and Tom and I just start brainstorming really fast and I'm sketching as fast as the four of us are talking. And so we have this rough idea, but we come away really excited from that meeting because there's just this energy that all four of us are really excited about the project and there's room for all of our ideas and we just hit it off. It's perfect. So then Greg is going to take the lead to roll this through city bureaucracy. And we had a really fun meeting at the mall where we advertised and people came and we talked about what people thought about Chinatowns. We got people's impression on what a Chinatown means. There was a little bit of education about the one we'd already had, and we just took input from people, which led to some great connections. George being the only Chinese person on our team of four, we've consulted with other Chinese people to get this right. So there's some signage that's going to go on the arch, and we want to make sure that the characters are correct and that the wording is right. There are many specifics about the dragon that I've had to consult with experts about. Had to change the design a couple times because I was completely unaware of things. For instance, the arch is going to be 24 feet wide and 14 feet in the air, 14 feet high. And sitting on the top of this is my dragon. And he's only 20 feet long, but he's got an undulating body. So if you uncoiled him and stretched him out like a snake, he's more like 36 feet long. And initially I thought I wanted this dragon to sort of lean down and greet people, like smile at you as you came up to the gate. But the Chinese folks that I've had some conversations with let me know that even though a Chinese dragon doesn't have wings, a Chinese dragon does fly. And if he's looking down, he can't elevate, he can't lift up. So that by pointing his face down, I've actually like clipped his wings in a way. So the Chinese dragon has to look up. That's one thing. And then they're like, where's the pearl? I'm like, excuse me? Chinese dragon has to have an orb. And this orb can represent the world or a pearl, but there has to be one. And I asked, can I make it into a beach ball? So it's kind of Santa Cruz-y. And they're like, well, yes, as long as you have a sphere, you're okay. I'm like, okay, great. And then you don't have any clouds. I'm like, I need clouds? Yes. So, okay, we're going to have clouds. It's just done one little thing after another, but it's great to be responsive, to have people give me their input and to listen to it. We did have some folks who wanted a happy dragon, and I think that was more just, please don't make him ferocious. So in the paper, we called him the happy dragon, but I got feedback like, no, we're not attaching emotions to a dragon. A dragon just is. And if you want his face not to be so ferocious, fine. But we're not going to call him the happy dragon, just the Chinese dragon. That's fine too. As long as all the constituents are happy, the dragon himself doesn't have to have the description of a happy dragon. And then there's toes and there's scales and other things to be concerned about. So he's being constructed in my driveway in Watsonville. He's not in my studio because he's too big. He's in my driveway because he's so big. But because COVID-19 and people are taking more walks, even myself, I'm getting to know my neighborhood so much better. But it has become apparent that I am now a destination on people's walks. They walk by to check out the progress. And that's because initially he's just this massive amount of cardboard stapled to the front of my garage and a drawing. And then from the drawing, I dragged my welder out into the driveway and created a steel armature. So they could still see the drawing, but now there's this metal dragon superimposed in the front of that drawing. The next step was I cut foam into chunks, blocks, and I had to notch that foam so that I could glue the foam onto the armature. That foam is then pieced so that the metal is inside. And so then at that point, the dragon was this chunky, blocky thing, kind of looking almost like a transformer. Then the next step is I have to take a hot knife and start carving. Carving foam is so much easier than carving stone. It's really fast and easy. And when using the hot knife, it's nice and clean, just roughing out the shape with this hot knife. After that, I have this industrial vacuum. This thing is so huge. I have to wear ear protection when I'm using it because now I'm with a rasp, I'm shaping. And so with one hand, I hold the section of the vacuum. On the other hand, I hold the shaper. So I'm shaping using a rasp and making the curves and the undulations of the dragon while holding on to this vacuum to suck up all the little pieces of foam that happen when I'm rasping. And I'm almost done with the rasping, and I've started with a alkali resistant fiberglass tape. So I have to tape the whole body, all the parts. When I'm done with that, that's the step I'm on now. When I'm done with that, I will cover him with cement. He'll get a 1/2-inch fiberglass reinforced cement skin, and then we'll put mosaics on him. There's had to been a lot of coordination between myself and Tom because he's going to pour an arch and the dragon has to attach so it won't fall off. And then there is the lettering that's going to go on there. There'll be Chinese characters as well as English translations. And those are going to be cast in bronze and then powder coated in red and attached to the arch itself. And Sean Monahan is doing that work. Sean Monahan is also making 2 Chinese lanterns so that there will be a little light on the gate at nighttime. And we're using solar power to do the lighting. Tom has a yard. The front yard of his business is a gallery as well. And he makes mock-ups. So he's got a 3/4 of the size final arch in his driveway going on right now. I'm really excited. He's found a really pretty yellow. So when he pours the cement, it's going to be a yellow arch. The dragon is mostly red. He'll have a yellow underbelly and some sparkles of blue and green and white here and there, because he is a river dragon and he's ascended out of the water. So there'll be some water splashes still on his body.
So there are river dragons.
Yes, there are river dragons. But the river dragon is related to all the other Chinese dragons. I'm not sure that there's a distinction, but George has beautiful stories to tell about the dragons that live in the San Lorenzo River, that he actually sees them with the coming and the going of the tide. Sometimes they're quiet and just kind of swimming along, but other times they're playful, and sometimes they're rather rambunctious and almost angry. If you're standing on the bank and you're looking at the water, it ripples, and depending on the ripples, it's what's the water dragons doing underneath.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. And will you be able to involve the community in the mosaic part of this?
This one is actually more like a studio project. I do have a studio practice as well, and even though it's a public artwork, there's not that much public involved in it, mostly because it's round, and it's very easy to cut yourself when you're working in mosaics in the round, and it's also really difficult to get the pieces to line up properly on a round form. So this one itself is probably not going to have terribly too much community hands-on work on the dragon itself. However, with my students, I have put mosaics all over the bridges and on the levee wall nearby where the Chinatown dragon is going to go. And we have been talking about how we will decorate the wall underneath the arch. And that will likely be a community-inspired and participatory mosaic to bring the two pieces together.
I have this vision of setting aside a little piece of that walkway, maybe for a day or a weekend, and putting up tables where kids can just come and draw pictures of dragons.
Oh, I like that. That's a really nice idea.
And it would be so wonderful if George would start writing down some of his stories about the river dragon. I would love to see that. And imagine a book put out, an illustrated book with the river dragon.
That's a really nice idea. I'm sure when George listens to this story, this radio show, he will be inspired to get started. I also really love the idea of potentially that mosaic down below depicting dragons in the water. And that sounds fun. And we're sort of reserving that spot underneath the arch to be the community portion. And since when we talk about community art, it's for, by, and with the community. And the by part is important so that I don't want to put out what my ideas of what that imagery might be until we talk to the community, because the community will have ideas, and if you seed your own ideas first, then you don't necessarily hear what's coming from other people.
And what will the process be of bringing the community into it? How will you do that?
Well, things are so different because of COVID-19. I'm not sure how that will happen, but it could go two ways. I'm thinking it'd be really great to have the whole thing done in October. That's our plan. Or not. It really depends on how the virus goes. Because what we want to do is have a gathering of the community to show them where we want their input, why we want their input. We want to get the community together and show them why the memorial is located where it is. Behind is the Galleria where Chinatown used to be, and in front of them is the river where the Chinese water dragon lives. And he affects the rising and the lowering of the water, as well as the temperament of the water. And they can tell us what images they would like to see under the arch. Now, we can do this virtually in like a town hall, and we ask people to write in or call in their ideas. But the point of community generated art is that the community comes together, has a conversation. The idea is that once the drawings have been decided upon, then we can do community mosaics where people come and place tiles on top of the drawings. Much as I would love for that to be done in community where people talk to each other, learn more about each other's connection to a Chinatown or just to each other or to the neighborhood, that might have to be done in just groups of 2 or 3 or family cohorts. But it is something that still can be done where lots of people have put their own piece of glass or tile into it. And so they have a mark and a feeling of ownership and pride in assisting and making something beautiful for their community.
That's such a wonderful idea and so exciting. And so by October?
The Arch and the Dragon are expected to be done by October. The community portion, I don't know. I'm a school teacher and we don't even know if we're going back to school. We just have to wait. Like the news today was pretty grim on the way we're handling COVID-19 right now. So it might be that we put it off.
Can you give us an idea of how people can find out about this? Do they go to your website to find out about it? What should they look for?
We don't currently have images available to the public because we haven't set up a website for them. I don't have works in progress on my own website. I could talk to the city. The city might like to start a page on this and photos up.
That would be great. And then once people hear about this, they're going to get really excited and want to know more. Thank you so much.
You're
really
welcome. Thank you.
It's been such a pleasure to begin to learn about the incredible things that you do. And boy, I really want to watch that dragon come to life.
Thanks, Jean.
Okay, well, I'll stay in touch.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
As listeners to this interview with Kathleen Crocetti may have realized, toward the end of our Zoom interview, the audio quality began to break up. Consequently, I want to add here that the City of Santa Cruz will be setting up a public web page with information and photographs showing ongoing progress with the Chinatown Memorial Bridge project. As soon as I receive a link to the website, I will post that information on my KSquid blog at ksqd.org under the program Exploring Santa Cruz.